I've recreated this absolute classic track, Anthem by N-Joi. It's just such a great example of a really good arrangement and how to use really simple but effective musical ideas to make a track really tell a story. Also, I want to share with you a powerful little tool I've created to help you diagnose exactly where your tracks are stuck so you never get stuck again. So let's dive in. So it starts off with this pad. Basically that's a D minor chord, and I'm using this, a Nils Kawai K1V. And then immediately we get into this. Pretty sure they used a Juno for this, but it's quite a simple patch. I mean, we could try and recreate it on the fly. So we'll just get a Juno, get an initialized patch. Get the sound, so I'm pretty sure it's a square wave. A little bit of envelope. Bring the frequency down. Then we need to play with the envelope to get the right settings. I mean, that's kind of it. So we just need a bit more envelope amount. I mean, I've done it a bit more carefully here. And I've actually got a little bit of compression, bit of EQ, make it more like the record. But here are my envelope settings, filter there, envelope on about halfway. Really nice simple patch, but you know, it does the job. Okay, so classic little reverse cymbal, and then we get into the awesome intro. One really lovely thing in this, and this is a big mistake a lot of people make, is they go to arrange something without enough bits to arrange. So what's really nice, if you have a part with a sound, maybe make a few more parts with the same sound. So this track, the main M1 bit is this classic riff. But for the intro, they've just got the same chords, but just nice and slow, and it's just got such an epic, classic, amazing vibe. Then, of course, we have these amazing vocals. This is from Peanut Butter, the Larry Levan mix. Really satisfying. I was able to get hold of, I think, every part of this track, apart from one, actually, yeah. I'm in love with you. But it's from the a cappella, obviously. Want you to love me too. And then again, we have this sound, and rather than just having it only be this, we've actually got 3 different parts. I should actually colour that differently, just to make that clear. So we have it there, then it's the same sound for these pads. And this. It doesn't have to be really complicated either, like making different parts. Like this part is just a nice little ARP, but then it turns into, I need to develop a technical term for this, but often it's really nice to have a little riff or motif or something that's on the beginning of the phrase, maybe 4 bars, maybe 2 bars. So this just happens at the beginning of every 2 bars throughout the track. And the delay really like carries it along. But they haven't actually had to do loads of extra work to get that other part, but it's much more interesting than if this had just continued the whole way through. And then we get into the drop, but it's actually a really nice characteristic of this track that it's kind of a false drop, and it does it again at the end of the track here. So we don't actually drop in, like the full drop is this. Whoops. But we get instead this false drop where we get bass, we get the kick drum and everything, the snare, we don't get the clap. It's just great kind of storytelling, and we get different vocals coming in, these vocals from Back to Life. So important with the arrangement is contrast and not giving everything away too fast. So they've got this beautiful bass line that goes with the riff. But rather than giving that away straight away, we just got a little tease of it here. this is from Darlene Davis. I'll put the info here. Again, they're not using this that much. Like when you have a lot of nice elements, you can afford to just have something come in. Like this only comes in for this bit. So that just plays twice, and then that's it, it's gone. And this just comes back for the breakdown. So one of the things in my little tool that I'm going to tell you about, it's like an acronym called DRIVE, and it stands for drums, rhythm, idea, voyage, and equalize. It sounds a bit silly, but trust me, it makes sense. The middle one of those is idea, and it's really, you want to look at your track and see if the idea is strong enough. Is the musical idea strong enough? And in my opinion, this track, this is the kind of core idea of it, and it's just so strong. Just a lovely little riff. And so important is this little timing. If this was fully quantized, well, let's hear what they would sound like, but let's listen to this little fill. Whoops. Little things like that make all the difference in the world. You can hear that it's kind of been played in. But like if we quantize that, let's quantize all that fully and listen to it. I mean, it's all right. But it just loses so much soul, in my opinion. So much coolness comes from that little difference there in the timing of the MIDI note. So we've got this false drop, we've got really strong ideas, lovely vocal samples, this little beginning thing that I'm going to think of a name for, but we're still saving up for the main full drop. Just every element is really strong, but it's quite simple. It's not like trying to be super complicated. So really the big difference with this drop is we get this clap coming in, and actually it's a snare and a clap. So we kind of have two snares. Let's just have a quick listen to the drums separately. Classic kick. Done a little bit of simply cueing. Classic combo of the 9 and 9 snare and clap together. More of a fat, big snare. So the velocity is doing a lot of work here to keep the interest. So much feel can come from velocity even before you worry about groove or anything like that. And then here we got some extra hats coming in. So all the drums together, let's listen to them on this bit where they're all there. Just quite simple but effective, partly because there's quite a lot of rhythm in the other parts. If you've got nice rhythmic elements in your synths, sometimes you can make the drums simpler and it'll work really well. Oh, and just briefly, I wanted to talk about this bass line. Really important thing with bass line is note length. It affects the groove so much. And this nice bit of groove here, it's probably been played in. That's quite late. They could have done it with quantize. This is actually... I'm not sure how I've got that, if I've played it in or what, or maybe I've copied the original, but you can see it's quite off the grid there. That's quite late, that's quite late. Again, this is like a thing, like all musical tools, they kind of nudge you in a certain way. They've got a thing that they want to do, and a DAW kind of wants you to put things on the grid. It doesn't really have a mind of its own, obviously, but it's quite easy to get locked into that, and it's really good not to, in my opinion. Trying to make things not just for the sake of it, but adding humanity into your music is so important, for me anyway. That's this drop section. We've got this vocal, and it's enough, isn't it? And then we get into the 16 bars of that, and we switch up the vocal. So this is the bit I couldn't get. Okay, I've just taken a bit, just fairly random bit from this peanut butter track. But yeah, that was kind of the closest I could get. It's not exactly the same. So I forgot to mention like the basic chord progression of the track, which we can look at in the main riff. So yeah, so it's all white notes. Like, it's super simple, it's really nice. So D minor, C major, and then G major. And that's like a little, it's a classic blues thing to do that. And then these chords, yeah, no, so we're sticking on the white notes and we're just doing a triad. And I'm just literally keeping my fingers in exactly the same position and moving up one note on the white notes. Just, again, really simple, but really effective, and it's taken this track. And importantly, we've cut out the vocal. It's make the space for this pad. This is another thing people often forget to do, is like take stuff out, bringing stuff in and out. It may sound stupid, but that's a huge part of making a really effective arrangement. And then we've got this bit, which I love. So it's the same, but we've got a rising note. I love it when tunes do this. I think it's in Le Freak by Chic. This is like a middle eight, and it just seems to rise and rise and rise, and then you think it can't rise anymore, and it rises more, and it's like, oh my god, so good. And that's what they're doing here. So just copying the note, the root note up here, and then rather than going back to the root note, we're just going to the A. Let's just have a listen. Brilliant. So then have a lovely breakdown, taking out most things apart from the clap and the little motif, and then we get this great vocal back. Yeah, and it just works really well. And we've got, but we keep this riff. That riff just stays in the whole time. Yeah, I mean, what would it sound like if that came out there? It'll be too empty. So you always want to judge it. You know, sometimes you can take too much out. But for me, that's a really nice contrast. And actually, we've never heard that on its own in the track. It's always been with other stuff. So it still feels new, even though we've been hearing it throughout the track. And then we've got the clap, which is just the clap and snare, just keeping the rhythm. For everyone in the dance floor, it's just like a little metronome almost. Then, so just bringing in some extra hats. So I always like to try and bring in another layer of percussion, kind of every 16 bars really, but they don't really need to do it in this. And then we have another full strop. So we don't have any bass, but we have the kick coming in and the rest of the drums. And then, yeah, just dropping in with this pad, and then you just basically roll out to the end. Got this lovely rising bit, got the vocal just coming in, and not a lot is changing, but because every single element is just so strong, it sounds awesome. Oh no, we do have something else coming in. Ah yeah, there's a nice little detail. I somehow managed to recreate it. Yeah, it's just a little background detail that they just chucked in. But pretty much, there you have it. Such a great example of a really strong arrangement. And let's look at this drive thing I was talking about. This is my little acid test of whether a track's good. And if you want to know more about it, there's a link in the description where I give you a much more fully described version of it. Essentially, there's kind of 5 core elements, I reckon, in a track. Like if one of these is wrong, then the track isn't quite there. So the first one is drums. It may sound obvious, but your drums need to be good, and in particular your drum sounds need to be on point. They need to be clear. Obviously in this they are. The sounds are good and the programming's good. If we just listen to the drums, my test is, can you just listen to the drums and more or less enjoy it? I mean, I feel like if you're in a club and that was playing, not for hours, but that came on, you'd be like nodding your head, like it's making you move. And for me, that's the test. The next letter is R, rhythm. And really, when I'm talking about rhythm, I'm talking about the bass. I like to think of the bass and the drums sometimes as one, like the rhythm section. They really want to be working together. So let's just solo the bass and the drums together. So really nice, really tight. The drums are kind of there as more of like a foundation for the bass. Sometimes it'll be the other way around. You might have the bass quite simple and the drums more going on, but they're working really nicely together, and the bass sound is good. It's loud enough. Sounds nice. The next one, I, is the idea, and I think we've seen how there's so many great ideas in this. They're just all really strong. Every little element. Like this riff is really strong, this little chord thing is really strong, this is, really simple but really strong, and this bass line, I really think it's worth putting the effort in making these parts good, like the melodies, the actual MIDI notes. This is where to spend time on, not EQing a hi-hat for 6 hours. So the next thing is Voyage, and that's kind of, I had to make the acronym work somehow, so bear with me with it. But Voyage is like the arrangement, the story of the track, and I've talked about it quite a lot already, but you can see how there's like a beginning, a middle and an end, and it ebbs and flows and it takes you on a journey. Terrible cliche, but I think that is what we want to do when we're making dance music. And then the final thing is equalize, and really there I'm talking about the mix. And yeah, mix sounds great, especially for a tune this old. Everything's nice and balanced, nothing's getting in the way of anything else. I mean, I've done a little bit of mixing. If we take that off, it's kind of a bit nicer, but it's not super essential. I think, yeah, I'm taking off a bit of the low end. Not doing anything here, a little bit of compression on this. In general, I think people overthink mixing and spend too much time on it. I think if you get the right sounds at the right volume, you're 90% of the way there. Like this M1 piano, tiny bit of extra high end. Same with that. Nothing on this one. Tiny bit of filtering on that. Yeah, got this going on. I mean, that is doing quite a lot actually. It's giving it a bit more snap because we've got the attack on 1 millisecond. It's just letting in a little bit and it's just creating it a nicer sound. But yeah, these vocals, no processing. A little bit of EQ on that one. Just taking off some lows. no processing on the bass. So you often don't need as much processing as you might think. There's actually a lot more to this drive thing, there are a lot more details. And if you're interested in getting it, I've got a free PDF. Just hit the link for the description, or hit the link in the description for that. And if you're interested in more classic tracks, check out this video to see how it was made.